The nation is watching as Virginia Democrats push their redistricting power grab in an effort to cement one-party control in the state for years to come. And court challenges are already lining up. We'll break down the latest developments and highlight how Virginians like you showed up strong at We the People Day, standing for truth and constitutional integrity, even when their voices and their flags were shut down. Plus, stay tuned for an exclusive message from Officer Tatum, a former police officer, nationally known Christian conservative voice, and Turning Point contributor who has a powerful word of faith and courage. From the Family Foundation, I'm Victoria Cobb with Candy Cushman.
Well, welcome everyone. Glad to have you with us for another episode of Speak Up Virginia. You might notice a little scratch in my voice. It's that time of year, so thank you, Victoria, for doing our intro today.
Of course.
Well, I'm excited that we're going to bring you an exclusive talk from our gala from Officer Tatum. Now, some of you might recognize him from social media. He is just becoming more and more well known as a powerful voice for truth. He was a personal friend of Charlie Kirk and really has done a lot with Turning Point and leading the next generation and just challenging people everywhere not to compromise on truth. So we're bringing you that. But first, I really want Victoria to have a chance to give all of you the latest on this huge battle over redistricting in our state.
Well, I mean, first I want to thank all the folks who actually showed up and came down for We the People Day. We had citizens come down basically to make their voices heard that this power grab is just not going to stand. People are not going to put up with this. Just as a reminder, we voted in our state constitution to put in a nonpartisan redistricting commission. And so 65+%, I think it was 66%.
Yeah, 66%.
So, I mean, we're talking, 2/3, pretty strong vote. And so them trying to undo this is not going to sit well. And we wanted to be there. And people came out with their families and they picked up flags from us. We had little flags that they could have, and they had their homemade signs. And so I guess we'll show a picture or two of that.
Yeah, it's awesome. We're going to put a few pictures up here. It was great just to see normal moms, dads, concerned citizens taking time out of the middle of their workday to come join us at the Capitol. Now, the flags did turn out to be controversial for no good reason.
Well, apparently, little tiny flags trigger somebody because we essentially found out that the police were going to come and they literally came and collected them out of the gallery. If you hadn't entered the gallery, they wouldn't let you enter with them all of a sudden. And I mean, this is not just to be clear, this is not against gallery rules. You can't have you can't display signs, you can't have objects falling off the ledge, but there is nothing that says you can't have a little tiny American flag. And some people didn't even have them out. But apparently, our love of country is a problem for some people. I mean, I think that's really truly what we had going on there.
I mean, it was a moment. Some of you might have seen the video that went around of the police officer being ordered to go and take everybody's flags in the gallery of the House. So that was crazy. And I actually had one person that went that day, a mom, and she let me know that she did feel it was political power because she was in there with her umbrella, and apparently that wasn't a threat, but her little miniature flag was.
Yeah, this is not about threats. And I mean, and keep in mind, I remember the days when we were debating the ERA, where these women came plastered with political signs in there. They wore sashes with ERA. Like, I mean, this isn't like, you obviously can have political symbolism in the gallery, or you can if you're on the left, but you just can't if you're actually a lover of your country and you want things to be, you want fair elections and you want non-power grabs. Like, that's when it's a problem.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only thing being shut down. The legislators were trying to recognize the We the People and folks from Turning Point, and that was being all shut down. And, what's really maddening, Victoria, is that they did recognize Planned Parenthood and the Democrat committee from Henrico or something like that.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's like the normal introductions and just honoring people. That has been a tradition of our General Assembly for forever. That, like, no matter how you feel about the people that are there, they're still the people, they still visit, and some legislator brought them in and is bringing them in to be introduced. So the idea that we're now not, like, we're going to pick and choose who we introduce, we're going to block out the mention of Turning Point or whatever, and
Turning Point Lynchburg.
It was the local chapter. There were some folks out from the Liberty chapter, and it's just ridiculous. And then the other thing that happened that day that I think is probably maybe even the most disturbing was sort of the discussion and moves around condemning political violence. So really very disturbing. So first you had a delegate Oates, who made a speech attempted to make a speech, I guess you would say, condemning political violence. And the speaker ordered the sergeant of arms to remove her. Like that she was doing something so out of bounds that she shouldn't even be on the floor. That's insane.
Yeah, and just the whole subject of that, because I
obviously
think
referencing J. Jones, right? But she didn't directly reference.
No, she was actually recognizing.
Him.
She was actually recognizing people that were against violence in the gallery. Like I think it was just in general against maybe women and children, something like that. Yeah. And so she was speaking about that whole topic. And obviously it does bring up the J. Jones text fantasizing about someone having to watch their child die in their arms. But, I keep coming back
But even if they wanted to condemn that, he's not a sitting member of the legislature. That's the only thing that's out of bounds, is sort of like going at somebody on the other side and naming people. I mean, she wasn't doing any of that.
Yeah. This is kind of random, but it just still strikes me that J. Jones knew that person personally. And, it's...
And still wished their child died in the arms of their wife. I mean, it's appalling. And if we can't speak out against that, and then I have to sort of add on to this that you also had the situation where Delegate Nick Freitas attempted to adjourn in honor of Charlie Kirk.
Oh.
And when he did, what they do is you say, I want to adjourn in honor of someone, and then people stand in support of that. And normally it's a universal thing. Everybody stand. Like, that's pretty typical. But apparently some of the Democrats couldn't stand to honor the death, the Charlie Kirk in memoriam. So some of them left the chamber, right? But then what's fascinating is one of their delegates, Delegate Shin, stood and asked if they could adjourn in honor of the Minnesota legislator that was killed, Melissa Hortman. And guess what? Every Republican stood, because we can stand against political violence of both sides. And just the fact that part of our chamber won't stand again. I mean, that demonstration was horrible.
And that's also really sad when you have a lot of Turning Point students there, and not all of them being able to be recognized. Maybe you could at least acknowledge the death of their leader. And so, that's not right.
If we just can't, as a society, say something was wrong when someone took a human life for political reasons.
That's the more disturbing thing behind all this.
It's bad enough that we're not condemning J. Jones fantasizing about it, like sort of writing about it in a thing. But it's terrible that when it actually happens, we can't all say, this is bad.
Well, when you take all of this in its totality, I think the confiscation of those American flags was quite symbolic, of everything happening. And also they were shutting down debate about even the Republicans being able to talk about why they didn't agree with the redistricting. I mean, my understanding is they really didn't have hardly any time to even state their opinions.
Yeah, so. I actually mentioned this. I gave a speech this weekend, or in the last week, about this idea of we censor each other all of a sudden in our society if we don't want to talk, like have civil discourse. And, this thing of we shut down someone else's speech or we name call in order to avoid the content of what they're about to say. I mean, this is what our mother said, this is like you were taught, like name calling is like such a weak form of, it's like we were taught, like you have discussions, you work through conflict.
Shutting down is what you do when you don't have a response or an argument.
Else to say. And this is what's literally going on almost as a course of process now at our General Assembly. And unfortunately, our General Assembly is kind of supposed to be the model for kids. We have the PAGE program and we bring kids down. Like, your legislators are supposed to be like, this is how it's done correctly. And now we can't really do that.
Well, despite all of those obstacles, I was so proud of the We the People folks who stuck it out to the end. Several
and they
of
went
them.
To committee.
I mean, this is hours long where they're just getting shuffled from one place to the other. And many of them stuck it out to the end where it was sent to the House committee. And I was so proud to see, we're going to put this up on the screen here, but the people opposing this, normal folks, citizens who came out to oppose, lining both sides of the room, and they were clearly the majority in that room.
Yeah, it was exciting to have them, and I think they probably, as is the typical experience when someone comes down to the General Assembly, are a little shocked by what they see. When they actually watch how these hearings go, it's a little like, wow, they really are unable to answer these questions, or so I think that it was just interesting because there was sort of some interesting moments during the committee. So first you had this sort of stunning moment where really through very astute questioning, Delegate O'Quinn exposed that they basically in this plan, they're basically giving a wide open window for gerrymandering that would happen. The window would be open until 2030. So it's just like, from now on, because they're claiming it's a pause in the commission, but it's a very long pause to address whatever might happen, however they want to adjust their power over the next 4 or 5 years. So that was crazy. And then,
well, let's just stop there because I mean, I was sitting in the room with the We the People, contingent and watching this, and you can actually hear Delegate O'Quinn ask that question, like, does that mean you're going to have a window to gerrymander? He didn't say gerrymander, but, until 2030 or whatever it is, and for several years. And literally, he could not answer.
He being Delegate Willett couldn't answer.
Willett, the one that was bringing forward this
right.
whole thing to redistrict. You hear this long pause and some nervous laughter. So let's just watch that moment.
So in line 55 and 56, in response to actions taken by another state between January 1, 2025 and October 31, 2030, based on what another state may or may not do, or a handful of states may or may not do, they're red and blue states doing this, but regardless, who specifically gets to decide whether that tripwire has been tripped?
Madam Chair, Delegate O'Quinn, again, that's not contemplated in the resolution. That's going to be taken up with the enabling legislation in terms of exactly what that process would be, and then what it's done from that process, the timing, how the lines are drawn, whether they're drawn for all or part of the state. That would all be through the enabling legislation.
Okay, follow up, Madam Chair.
Delegate O'Quinn.
So if I'm looking at January 2025 to October 2030, we're in November 25 now, with the 26 election cycle coming. So theoretically, if we're only talking about congressional elections, am I right that you could theoretically, based on this language, draw new congressional districts for the 26, 28, and 30 election cycles?
I think that's right. I was just thinking about the scenario because it does take a minute to go through that. That certainly could happen.
I just think it's really bad when you don't have answers for the content of your bill, but the truth is, what the answer is, right? But you don't want to admit it, it's because it shows it's just a transparent, naked display of power in this bill, and they kind of don't want to admit that. They want to look like they have some just cause, right? Some real reason to do this, but
kind of shows you why they were shutting things down.
Right.
Well, one other standout moment for me sitting there watching this whole thing, and it just goes right along with what you were saying about they want to justify, they want to feel like they have a just cause and come up with stuff for that, is Delegate Price, the chair of this committee, gave a closing statement. And almost the first word out of her mouth in her closing statement was Texas.
And then there's this great moment, and then everybody just reacts like, we're not Texas, this big outburst. And, and actually that happens, any mention of other states is generally frowned upon in the General Assembly. So it's not surprising, but we're Virginians. This is not about reacting to what they do. But then, of course, I don't know what you can hear in the video in terms of the
crowd.
But then you hear her do a smackdown, basically. So we should play that.
Yeah.
Let's play that clip.
There was energetic testimony today about being against the resolution. And I do just want to point out the absence of that same energy when Texas began its redistricting. When So what you will do is have decorum. Because I'm going to finish my statement whether we have an audience or not. Thank you. And so the hypocrisy is deafening, especially when we talk about bipartisanship, because there was no bipartisan outrage. I would also offer that the threat to our federal democracy is part of Virginians' concerns.
All right. Well, Victoria, bring people up to speed. Where are we at the time of this taping? Everything's moving fast, but at the time of this taping, what's happening now on this battle?
Well, really, they think the next step is passing it again at the next General Assembly session. We know that it's going to basically head to court. I mean, there's all sorts of litigation because
and for those that haven't
reasons.
been paying total attention, it did pass
Yeah.
Yeah,
It went through the
House-
legislature, then you have the election, and now the next step in a constitutional amendment is it has to pass a second time. So they, in their minds, they just have to wait till January, and then they pass it again, and then we're stuck voting on this at the ballot. But
Which could happen as early as May.
yeah, we're
Or
learning.
before.
But really, truly, there's already litigation ready to go and moving. So the question is, is the litigation successful? And the litigation is based on some really legitimate claims, which is if you voted before they passed this measure, the election isn't intervening. It's not in between. You voted, then they passed it again. You had no ability as a voter, because the goal
Which is close to 1 million people have done that
Yes,
at this time.
yes, 1 million people
At this time, yeah.
roughly had voted before they had a chance to react to this, and that's what the founders of our Constitution. That's why they put that process in there, is so we could react. If we don't like what they did, we get to vote them out. But those people can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest cases. And then there's some cases about notice in the courthouse, and there's some other things that they may not have correctly done. But anyway,
Yeah.
So
And as we shared last time, there is a real chance that we are dealing with 3 or 4 amendments.
yeah, if folks are unsuccessful saying this is a sham process and this isn't what was intended, and it does move forward, all the amendments are likely to be together early, way earlier. We were expecting an abortion amendment, a marriage amendment, those kind of things.
Summer.
So you'd end up with those instead of November, way early, which is a significant change of
All right.
plan. But
Well, stay tuned for next week, because we're going to bring you an update post-election.
Yes.
I mean, I know by the time you're hearing this, the election
will have
have occurred. But stay tuned. We're going to be giving some deeper analysis of that, and I'll be quizzing Victoria on that. So stay tuned for that. Well, this is actually a perfect time to go into Officer Tatum, because we need some encouragement right now.
Inspiration right now, please.
Well, and it really is perfect, because in his speech, he actually said, "Don't despair when men prop up foolery," which is on point.
Perfectly tracking.
Well, Victoria, bring us up to speed real quick on why it was so important to you to have him at the gala, and tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, so he is most known for his YouTube show, his podcast, The Officer Tatum Show, which reaches literally millions, and he's also nationally syndicated on radio. And I like the description that goes with his show. He says, quote, "Bringing the smoke where it's needed most, former police officer, man of God, speaker, entrepreneur, Turning Point USA contributor, a husband, and a father." That's a pretty good description of what he is. So
he really is one of the most courageous voices out there today. I'll just mention that he authored a book, Beaten Black and Blue, Being a Black Cop in America Under Siege. He co-founded something called Blexit, which is a movement to encourage independent thinking in the Black community. And as you will hear, he just continues to call all of us to courage and clarity in our culture. So without further ado, let's hear Brandon Tatum.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody that is here. It's such a pleasure to be here. When I was asked to come through, it was a last-minute thing, and it was in the honor of Charlie Kirk. And I remember that text message they asked me, and I said, "I'd do anything for Charlie." I want you guys to understand this about me and my relationship with Charlie, is that he wasn't just a guy online that I would watch and be inspired by. Charlie Kirk was a really good friend of mine. He was a young man, younger than me, that inspired me, and I believed in him. And he challenged me to do better and be a greater man, be a greater father, and be a better follower and more authentic follower of Jesus Christ. And Charlie was one of the hardest working people that I've ever seen in my life. I'll never forget the first time we went to dinner. That young man had a garment bag, and a garment bag is supposed to be one garment folded over the top. He had a month worth of clothes in that garment bag, and we barely ate anything before he had to run out of there and get on a plane to create a movement like never before. And I often think about the day that I found out that Charlie had lost his life. I remember getting ready to do my podcast, and Fox News called me, and they said, "Hey, we need you to come on right now because Charlie has been shot." And I remember I couldn't even think. I couldn't even focus. I didn't want to go on the show. I didn't want to hear nothing else they had to say to me other than, "Is my friend okay? Is Charlie okay?" And we saw the video that everybody else has seen. And the first video I saw was from a distance. And I had a lot of faith that he would recover. I thought he had just taken a shot to the shoulder, and I thought that God was going to recover him and going to save his life like he did Donald Trump. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Unfortunately, I saw the horrifying video that was close up and personal. And I would never forget the anger that I felt. I was upset, and the flesh side of me wanted revenge. I remember thinking to myself that I'm going to get up, and I'm going to go to Utah, and I'm going to fight for my friend. And I remember God telling me, Brandon, that's not what I called you to do. Brandon, do you not understand that when you claim that you are going to be faithful to me, all of those who have said that they're going to be faithful and allow me to use them for my purpose, these are the things that may happen, and I'm in full control. Don't you think for 1 second there will be a hair or anything that's damaged on a child of mine that I don't know about. And I remember wiping my tears away and hearing God tell me very clearly, it's time to get up from there. It's no time for you to feel sorry for yourself. It's no time to feel sorry for Charlie. Charlie is in heaven, where we all want to be one day. But it's time for us to be courageous and not let his death be in vain, but let his death be an inspiration to all of us on how we should lead in our faith, how we should lead our families, how we should be courage in the face of dealing with demons and evil people. Charlie Kirk would be that example. I always give the speech about the tale of two men. And Charlie Kirk reminded me so much of Jesus. And many people look at me crazy like I got three heads when I bring up Jesus and Charlie Kirk. But the truth of the matter is, if you are faithful to Jesus Christ and you're following what the Bible says, your life should reflect Jesus, just like Charlie's did. So it's not a stretch to say that I see a comparison. I see a man who studied. I see a man who was bold. I see a man who would go in a crowd of anybody at any time with a good heart and good faith and challenge them to the truth. I saw a man that nobody can beat in a debate. Nobody. The Pharisees couldn't beat him. They wished they could beat him, but he had the word of God in him. He was faithful and strong. And that man had a lot of people that followed him. They would see the miracles. They would watch the things that he said. They would marvel at how a man his age could be so wise. But then on the other side of that, there were people who hated him. There were people who misunderstood him purposely because they had faults in themselves that he revealed. And then one day, they decided to kill that man. And they thought once they killed him, his legacy would be over. And I see a very close similarity to Charlie Kirk, a young man that was bad to the bone on campus. I would never debate Charlie Kirk. If I disagreed, then I'm just gonna have to agree with him on that day. Because he did it with love. He did it with the Spirit of God in him. Some people often wonder, how is he so effective? And it's because God was able to anoint the words that came out of his mouth to impact the hearts of the people who listen. But in that same moment, the truth of God caused the devil to rise up in somebody else. And on that day, a young man, destroyed on the inside, believing in lies and deception, controlled by the devil, if you ask me, decided that he was going to take Charlie Kirk's life. And he did. But let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, the joke is on him. The joke is on the Pharisees. Because when they thought they would kill that man, they thought they would kill his legacy. But I came here to tell you that there's no way that you could kill the legacy of a man led by God himself. And so all that Charlie Kirk stood for will continue. 2,000 years ago, they thought they killed Jesus and they thought it was over, but 2 billion people follow the name of Jesus today. And they thought they would kill Charlie Kirk and shut him up. Now there's more chapters than ever before. Now more people are watching Charlie Kirk's message than ever before. More people are coming to Christ than I think they would have came if Charlie was still alive. But that tells you the power of our God. Y'all better give me a timer because I'm going to start preaching in a minute. But I want this to reflect on us, to empower and encourage us to understand that God has a message and a purpose for you as well. Charlie's purpose was exactly what happened, for him to live for Christ, and when he died, there was a gain. And for him to do it with all of his heart. Charlie did not die with nothing on the table, with not one regret. I know it with my whole heart. That boy went pedal to the metal all the way to the end. And now I'm imploring you guys to do the same thing, including me. How far are we going to go? How much more are we going to give? How much more bold are we going to be in the face of enemies or in the face of friendly people like our neighbors and our family members who contest the things that we say? How much more faith are you going to have now? Every person in this room has a purpose and a mission. God has called you in a unique way. Every single person have a certain DNA strand and a fingerprint that only you got, that only God knows. And he's called us to step up and stand out. He's called us to do what that thing in your heart that you have been thinking about, that you've been too afraid to do. He said, this is the time to do it. That conversation that you've been waiting to have with somebody, that bold statement that you've been waiting to deliver, God is saying now is the time to do it like never before. And with what's going on in Virginia, and I heard all of that, and I'm kind of glad I don't live here. I ain't gonna even lie to y'all. I'm glad I live in Arizona. I'm far away from these lunatics. But what is God saying in that moment is no matter what the devil does, no matter what these evil people think they can prop up, we ultimately have the power and the authority of God to overcome. I don't care what legislation, I do care, but it doesn't matter when it comes to our efforts at them passing whatever they want to pass as far as abortion extension. Because we have the power to lead our own families. We have the power to pray for our young people, to encourage our young people, to inform them to make the right decision no matter what the law is. We have that power. Don't be dismayed just because man props up foolery. Have the courage that God has given us that we can overcome no matter what. And we've been built for this. We've been battle tested. This country is here today because men and women who believed in God fought all the way to death to make sure that we can be free. And I be darned if we don't step up like never before and keep this country free and make it better than anyone could ever imagine, so that our founding fathers, the people that have died, some of our family members who have died in war, will be proud of what we've done. So Charlie Kirk will be looking from heaven down on us and saying, y'all did a good job. Y'all did everything I always wanted to do. Y'all kept it up. You did not let the devil win. And that's our goal, ladies and gentlemen. We got it. And I'm not here to tell you about making us paying money or donating, but it's been on my heart to say this real quick before I get off this stage. If you gave tonight and you gave the first thought in your mind, but you felt God telling you to do a little more, I want you to take God serious. I want you to not be scared anymore. I want you to give like this the last time you have an opportunity to give. Because I know everybody are in here because you believe in the mission of this organization. Not just to look cute and be fancy with your nice suit and your dress on, but because you really believe in something that's powerful. And I want you to take that consideration to heart. And I'll say this and get off this stage. I want to thank you for your dedication and what you guys have already done. And I want to thank you for welcoming me all the way from Arizona to come here and to be a part of something that Charlie Kirk didn't have the opportunity to do. And so God bless you guys. God bless America. And thank you.
I just love how sincere his faith is. You could tell that came from his heart. And he's challenging us, leave nothing on the table when it comes to defending the principles of your faith. And that's how we can honor the legacy that Charlie had.
Yeah, it was a perfect message for a perfect night. And of course, I was so appreciative that he made a plug for donating to the Family Foundation. That was, speakers don't have to do that. It was really, I think he was genuinely moved by all the different, I think if you were there that night, the combination of all of these speakers was just very powerful. We're glad we can bring them to people in clips, but it really was collectively a really powerful evening, and Brandon was a big part of that.
Yeah. Well, Victoria, why don't we end the way we started with you taking us out?
All right. So I guess that will wrap for this week. But if you can share this on Spotify or wherever you get your playlist, like it, comment. We love getting feedback as well. So feel free to send us your feedback. But with that, we'll go ahead and say we are stronger when we speak together.